Now let's take care of uploading our audio files that a user selected, as well as creating a new track in the process. So in order to upload audio files, we're going to use a free service called Cloudinary. You'll just need to head to cloudinary.com and click on the Sign Up for Free button. And you won't need to provide your credit card or anything. You'll just provide your user information, and note that at the bottom you'll be given what's known as a cloud name. It's going to be by default a random string. I'd highly recommend you edit this value to something more memorable. We're going to need this cloud name later on to make requests to the Cloudinary API to upload our audio files. So I would set it to something memorable like your name. Once you're done with that, you'll select Create Account. And from there, you'll be taken to your dashboard. Once you're at your dashboard, you'll click on this gear icon in the top right-hand corner with the name Settings. And once you're taken to the Settings page, you'll select Upload, and we'll scroll down to the area called Upload Presets. And in order to upload audio files with Cloudinary, we need to add an upload preset. So this allows us to define the default behavior for our uploads. So we'll select Add Upload Preset, and we really just need to do two things here. The first is to add a upload preset name. So this is a parameter that we need to pass to the request that we make to the upload API of Cloudinary. So again, make this something that you can easily remember. I would personally recommend giving it the name of your project, React Tracks. That's what I'll be doing. And we also want to allow for unsigned uploads. So for this signing mode dropdown, we want to select unsigned. And once that's done, we can hit the Save button, and we should see in the Upload Presets area the name React Tracks with the mode unsigned. And that's really all the configuration that we need to set up Cloudinary to allow for our audio file uploads. Now we can head back to our project, and up at the top of Create Track, we want to bring in what we need to execute our Create Track mutation. So we'll import mutation from React Apollo, as well as GQL from Apollo Boost. And we'll head down to our dialog area, and surrounding our dialog component, we want to add our mutation tags. So we'll add our mutation tags, add our render props function, and then within the return of this function, we can provide all of the dialog component as well as its children. So we'll move that into the return of our mutation component. Then we want to declare which mutation that we want to execute on the mutation prop. This is going to be our create track mutation, which we can add underneath our component. So we'll put it in a variable called create track mutation. And this mutation, if you recall, is going to take 3 arguments, which we need to declare as variables. We need to put the values passed to those arguments in variables. The first is the title argument, so we'll declare a title variable with the type of string and required, a description variable of type string and required, and a URL variable also of type string and required. Then we'll provide the name of the mutation create track, pass each of these variables to their respective argument, and then we'll get our data back on a track subfield, and on that we can specify that we want from the track the ID, title, description, and URL. Now if we head back to the render props function, we can grab the mutation function itself, create track, and then from the second parameter we can destructure loading and error. We won't need to use the loading value for reasons I'll discuss in just a second, but we will need the error just in case there's an error with this mutation. So we want to say if error, return our error component with our error passed through as a prop. So let's make sure to first import error from our shared folder. So that's one level up /shared/error. And in the process of executing this mutation, we need to upload our audio file and then supply the returned URL that we get from the Cloudinary API to our create track mutation to actually create a new track record. So when this form is submitted, we want to execute a new function. So I'll add an onSubmit and pass the event to a function call for the function handleSubmit. And that's going to take event and create track. So let's create handleSubmit above our return. And first we need to call on event prevent default to prevent the page from reloading. And next the process will be to upload our audio file and get returned URL from API. We need to do this before we can execute our create track mutation. So let's execute a function in this place. We're going to call it handle audio upload. It's not going to need to accept any arguments, but what we will need to do, in addition to sending our stored file over in state to the Cloudinary API, and we'll do that with the help of a post request, we also need to add some metadata, some information about the request that we're making. So remember, in Cloudinary, we saw that we had to provide an upload preset value, the upload preset value that we specified, and we'll also need to add information like our particular cloud name. And the way that we're going to collect all this information is with the help of form data. So we can create some form data with the form data constructor by saying new form data. And once that's created, we can store it in a variable called simply data. And then to add new form data, we can just say data.append. And the first value passed to it will be the name of what we want to append, for example, the file, and then the next will be the file itself. So let's append the file first from our file variable in state. Next, we'll append the resource type, meaning the type of upload that we want to make, and this is going to be a raw upload. There are 3 types of resources that Cloudinary can upload for us: image files, video files, and raw files. Then we also need to append the upload preset, and you likely set that to the name of the project, React Tracks. Then we can say data append and append our cloud name. This is the value I recommended you edit when you created an account with Cloudinary, and mine is Code Artistry. And now we need to make the actual request to the Cloudinary API. And the way that we're going to do that is with the help of an HTTP client library. I'm personally going to be using Axios to make this post request. So to use Axios, you can up at the top import Axios from Axios. Then to make a post request with it, you just have to say axios.post, then provide the URL that you want to make this request to, and our full URL will be as follows: https:/v1_1/ and then your cloud name /raw/upload. And then in the second argument, we pass through data with all of our appended form data. Then we want to get back from the request our URL, the uploaded URL, so we can await axios.post and turn this into an async function. So we can put the return value into a variable which we'll call res, and then at the end of this function we can grab the URL from res.data.url and make sure to return that. So then within handleSubmit, we can await handle audio upload. we get back our uploaded URL. We'll put that in a variable of the same name. We'll turn this to an async function too. And then we can take create track and pass it all of its requisite variables on the variables object. So we'll provide title, description, and URL will be set to uploaded URL. And then finally, what we want to do when a track is created is we want to close the dialog by setting open back to false. So we can add onCompleted to our mutation, and from onCompleted, remember that we can get our return data, so we can console log that if we like, but we'll also set open and pass in false. And remember I mentioned that loading isn't going to be particularly useful to us, and that's because we have to upload a file before we actually run our create track mutation. So loading is only going to be true when we run create track. We normally use loading in order to disable our submit button, but in this case, instead of using this value, since we're going to have to submit our form and wait for a period of time before loading is actually true, we can create a new value in state called submitting, where the setter is going to be set submitting. By default, that'll be false, and this will be our flag to determine whether we're in a loading state or not for our form. So at the beginning of handle submit, after prevent default, we can say set submitting, set it to true, and then when our mutation resolves successfully, before set open, we can set submitting to false. We also want, in the case of an error with our audio upload, we want to try uploading the audio, and we'll put that in the try part of a try catch. So we'll try uploading the audio and we'll catch any errors. So within catch we can say console.error and provide the error message error creating track or uploading file, and pass through the error object, and then also set submitting to false to make it possible to resubmit our form again. Then finally, let's head down to dialog actions, and when we're in a submitting state, we can disable both the cancel button so they can't close out of the dialog, and we also want to add a condition to disable the submit button. So finally, let's save create track and let's test this out in the browser. I'm going to add a new track. I'm going to call this test 1. For the description, test 1 description, and then actually upload an audio file. Feel free to supply whatever MP3 or valid audio file that you like. Oh, and finally, one last thing. We can optionally display a loading spinner within our submit button if we add a ternary in place of the button text. If we say submitting is true, then let's return a circular progress component with the class name classes.save and the size set to 24. Otherwise, we'll provide our original text of add track. So now let's save create track, and we'll add this for real. Select an audio file, hit our add track button, and it looks like that was successful. We're not getting any errors. If there was an error in uploading the audio file, we would get our error component displayed, telling us a URL wasn't supplied. If we take a look at our console, we see that an object was returned, and on it we get data, create track, and then our track data with everything that we requested. And then for our URL, we see the uploaded URL, the URL that Cloudinary created for us when it uploaded our file. So you can actually take that and head to your browser, and you can play that. Now, one obvious problem is that we don't immediately see our track within the UI. If you refresh, it'll show up. However, in the next video, we'll take care of this problem so that when we create a track, it's immediately displayed in our UI.